If you're like me, you spent most of your childhood being fed slightly racist images on TV, particularly through commercials, although not quite like Russian news coverage of their special military operations. Despite that, I like to think I grew up fairly well balanced and progressively minded individual. When you consider the decade that I grew up in, it's by today's standards truly remarkable, since whilst children are apparently capable of deciding what academic subjects they should learn and have the foresight to identify what gender they will be when they grow up before they even know what gender is, if Disney are to be believed, they cannot be trusted to make up their own mind about social politics, and anything they are told in their early years will form their core beliefs and thus their personality for the rest of their lives. Essentially, there seems to be a fear that if you let your child watch Dumbo without the prerequisite warnings about what is and isn't acceptable social conduct by today's standards, they will in fact become racists, rapists, paedophiles, and roustabouts only a mother could love. Which begs the question why everyone over the age of 35 isn't one or all of the above, since that's precisely the narrative that the mass media seem determined to push into our ever so delicate and easily manipulated little brains. When Grand Theft Auto came out, the establishment watched in horror as an entire generation of children murdered their way through their evenings and continued to live out the rest of their lives as though they had some idea of what was morally right and wrong. In fact, didn't start stealing cars and using them to run over prostitutes and shit on their corpses only to claim the $50 they just spent on having their gear stick waxed. The boomers, hiding behind their curtains and waiting for the purge that was only moments away, spent a decade fighting a war against a problem that didn't actually exist and seemingly forgot all their parenting skills, as instead of realising that anything you tell a teenager not to do they're likely to go right on and do as soon as your back's turned, and then later forgot that parenting the children altogether, instead cover the world in yellow and black hatch safety foam so that they could go out and fill their bodies with liquid poison and get fucked over a trash can, all the while not having to worry about little Timmy falling out of his gaming chair and impaling himself on a sharp piece of organic kale chip. Social politics have always been part of our entertainment, but always with a level of subtlety that seems to be lost on the new generation of producers and directors. Every story we were ever told as kids growing up had a moral to it, and the TV characters could be portrayed as just being good people by their actions alone without the need for a BAME character to pop up and explain it. These days, if you don't have a bright neon sign pointing out who the good guys are, you can usually assume it's anyone but the white guy, and every joke has to then be explained by a special exposition character lest it be confused to someone's actual opinion, and that person being chased out of the Twitter village by an army of half-wits with metaphorical pitchforks. Social politics are intertwined with the stories that we tell, but the harder you try to ram it down audiences' throats, the more likely you are to trigger their metaphorical gag reflex. Apart from a few obvious exceptions, any movie or video game which has had its marketing campaign either deliberately aimed at or hijacked by the liberal elites, riding in on their noble steeds to fight for minorities which are usually aren't part of themselves, or to start a fight with an imaginary patriarchy, and usually have done pretty badly as audiences want to watch movies and play games to forget about the stresses and worries of modern life, not to be lectured about them like some naughty child who's been caught walking through the keyhole of the girls' locker room at school, or writing dirty words without their actual meaning. If you're going to use your medium to preach about the plight of the South American donkey population, then you need to do it in a way which the audience can make up their own minds based on the facts presented, rather than coming away from the experience feeling like they've been fucked in the arse by one of those same donkeys.